Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 397. Ooh. Fast and Furious 6, lap 15. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too. And this episode is brought to you by Alliance Travel. Without travel insurance, you'll have to navigate every travel emergency on your own. Whether that's a missing suitcase or a medical evacuation, shout out to Alliance Travel.
Well, shout out to Alliance Travel and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. With us today, we have a returning guest, a returning champion to talk about the world's longest runway. Aaron Neuwirth is back. Hello, Aaron.
Hi guys. I'm ready to own this, but is that a new ad? Has there always been this ad?
It's a new ad every episode. We have a new sponsor every episode. Joe's on the streets hustling really, really hard. He's
every time,
every episode.
It was so lovely to hear. I was impressed by this ad read.
Yeah. If you need travel coverage, shout out to Alliance.
Shout out to Alliance. Use code TOOFAST for 20% off your next travel purchases. Aaron, we must get to the elephant in the room, and the elephant is kaiju sized. You have a new podcast.
Oh boy, you want me to go right off the bat with this?
Well, I mean, look, you
I
reached
wanna
out
know
recently
about it. Tell
and you
me.
said you wanted to join the show, and then I was like, well, we have a guest for the next couple of Fast and Furious movies, and then our guest this week fell through, and so we're like, hey, I just got this request from this cryptic account on Instagram to follow my account, and I'm like, oh, I know who these people are, or at least I know one of these people. So before we get to, we'll talk about it again at the end, but
Sure.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, well, I'm happy to. I'm excited to. My friend Terrence Johnson and I, we are both film critics. We are both black. I am a major Godzilla fan. He is less of a Godzilla fan, but he's Godzilla curious, as we like to call it. I just made that up. We'll begin to.
That's amazing. It was good. It hit.
And so we are starting a podcast that launches this March, which is called, you guessed it, Two Black Guys Talk Godzilla. Each week it's a bi-weekly podcast, so every 2 weeks we're going to be doing an episode which will cover one episode in chronological order from the Godzilla franchise, which does include the greater Godzilla universe, so things like Mothra and Rodan, those movies as well, War of the Gargantuas or what have you. But we're going in order, so we have our whole first season mapped out, which is the Showa era, so the 54 up to 74 maybe. But regardless, so we have like 8 months worth of Godzilla episodes planned out to do, which is very exciting. Cool. Obviously, I'm a big Godzilla fan, and I'm excited to have Terrence catch up with a lot of films that he hasn't seen. He's seen the original. He hasn't seen pretty much any of the early Godzilla films, though, which get, much sillier. So yeah, we're very excited about this. We launched all our socials, like you mentioned, so you can follow. You can follow us now on Instagram at Two Black Guys Talk Godzilla, or on the X and Blue Sky, because that's too many characters. It's just Black Godzilla Talk, BLK Godzilla Talk. So
I will link everything in the show notes. Very white friend of the show, Mike Manzi, also loves Godzilla. Resident historian Mike Manzi is also. So if you ever want two black guys and one white guy, who was around during the Showa era, he was born before pre-Showa, and he's been around for a while. Grew up with those movies.
What's really cool is how welcome. I'm very aware that the Godzilla community is very friendly. That's something that I've always.
They are or they are not?
They are, and it's something I'm very happy about, because whenever I get too invested or too involved in other social media, it's like, let me go to my Godzilla Twitter feed, which I absolutely have, because it's so much nicer there and non-controversial.
Oh, nice.
And so when we launched all our
found a positive corner
space
of Twitter?
of the internet.
I know,
the internet in general.
It's a very welcoming and progressive community.
Wow.
But so when we launched all the socials, we followed a few of the fan sites, and all these kaiju fan sites started following us and being like, "This is great, good luck, guys!" and start sharing our thing. We put out
cool.
We put a little teaser video up, so they start sharing that on their social pages and stuff too. They're like, "Give these guys a chance. They're going to start in March." It's been very invigorating to think not only is this a fucking fantastic title that I came up with for the show, but that it's being accepted by the world at large, giving us tens of followers within the first few days.
Well, I will also, I will wish you that you do not run into the same luck that we had. Not luck, but when we started this show, there was one other Fast and Furious podcast, and it was defunct. And then there quickly became about 45 of them. And I think there's now maybe 2 still active, including ours. So maybe you will ride the tide. There will be a Mothra podcast and a Ghidra podcast and all those, who knows?
But hopefully they die, and
Two
you're the only
Asian
one
ladies
left.
talking about Mothra. Is that racist? That might be racist. Let's not.
If anything, it'd be very fitting given that it's Mothra, so they have who's associated with two twin ladies.
So now, Aaron, you were on forever ago. You've been on the podcast a bunch to talk about different movies, but you were on a while ago to talk about a Fast and Furious movie. I could pull up your rankings. I don't really want to. Where does Fast and Furious 6 rank for you? Is this one of your favorite Fast and Furious movies? Is this in the middle? Is this toward the bottom? What's your overall thoughts? Before we dive deep into this, what's your overall thoughts on Fast and Furious 6?
As I quickly try to pull it up on my letterbox to see what the actual ranking is, if I had to guess without looking at my ranking offhand, I think it's fourth. I have it pretty high up, or
pretty high
up. I put it in the A tier of Fast and Furious movies. I'm pretty sure about that.
Well, I mean, again, there's 11 A tier movies, so they're all.
I get as I said that, I was like, this sounds ridiculous. Like I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I think that's where I have it. Let me see here.
So now, before we actually get to that, this is the oops, we should have covered that already lap, and I think this is a question that will be very good for you. Like you'll excel at this. I hope, because you watch more movies than literally almost anybody I know, if not actually anybody I know.
Amen.
This whole lap in between the Fast and Furious movies, we are covering movies that either feature the actors or a thematic, or we've talked about a lot, or whatever, things that we probably should have covered, being that we're 400 episodes deep, but we haven't yet gotten around to. So if there's a movie out there, it could be one that we've already covered. If you're just like, you really got to make sure you do this, it's fine if we've already done it. But what's a movie out there that we might not have seen that like reminds you of Fast and Furious, that you're like, this is a movie that should be talked about on your show, even though it's not canonically a Fast and Furious movie? And also, side question, what's the most Fast and Furious Godzilla movie?
Oh, good question.
You're gonna be both of these are excellent questions. Let me
Yes.
say right now. We have to come back to this Godzilla one because I'll be thinking too hard about the answer to this one. What's a Godzilla film? Sorry, see what you did? You invaded. You accepted me.
We covered for the Patreon. We covered Pacific Rim, so that's kind of Fast and Furious because it's
We're close.
It was the planes, trains, but no automobiles. It was vehicles other than cars, and so someone picked Pacific Rim for us. So that the mech suits.
Have you guys covered? I know there's the remake, which has Paul Walker actually, Brick Mansions. Have you covered District B13?
No.
Have you covered Brick Mansions? By the way,
We did Brick Mansions.
We did Brick Mansions.
So you haven't done the
Yeah.
original, which rules District B13.
No.
Oh, that would be. I think that if you cover Brick Mansions, I mean, automatically there's a connection right there. So you'd be like 3 levels deep.
Yeah.
As far as covering a movie that was remade starring Paul Walker, but yeah, I'd say District B13 fits in like a movie clearly because you haven't covered it, but like also in a kind of high kinetic action, not involving cars. It's all parkour. Although I think there's some car stuff in there, but and it rules. Again, it's a good action movie.
I only have 4 people on Letterboxd I follow who have rated this movie, and all 4 of them gave it 4 stars. That's pretty.
That's a good
solid.
sign.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
District
Excellent
B13.
recommendation.
Boom.
We knew that was a great question for Aaron because he's the right guy to ask something like that.
Now,
Excellent.
let's get back to that Godzilla question. What's the most Fast and Furious Godzilla movie?
Offhand, like just going on cursory, like I've looked through the titles and posters, and let me give an idea here. I think Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. That's from I want to say the Millennium era. It's the same year. It was 2002, so it's right around the Fast and the Furious. It has certain sensibilities that I think, based minus like intense car chases, I do think there's something about the look of that movie and just kind of the feel of it that probably reminds me, I think, of like a movie that has that era kind of action sensibility. I think that's. And plus,
That'd be cool.
What's great about Godzilla is the same thing that's great about Fast and Furious. There's so many titles, like the variations of the same thing. There's a Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. There's also a Godzilla vs. Kong, the Rise of Mechagodzilla, and there's also a Terror of Mechagodzilla. Just like, let's just put a name in there, and like, chances are you're maybe seeing the right movie.
They are all different. For example, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. The Mechagodzilla is built through the bones of the original Godzilla that died in '54, and they retrieved those and then built a Mechagodzilla around it.
That's insane.
This is such a cool
it gets more insane because this one in the Millennium era, which is largely anthology films, it's the only one that has a sequel because this one was so popular, called Godzilla Tokyo SOS, where that Mechagodzilla becomes haunted by the bones of the Godzilla that's within the Mechagodzilla.
With inside itself, it's haunted from the inside
Yes,
out.
so Godzilla
Okay.
and the humans have to basically team up. And by team up, I mean they're just both fighting against Godzilla or against Mechagodzilla because the bones are too harmful. So
These pictures that I'm screen sharing right now really make it look like Furious 7. Like, this is like a Dom
I'm telling
versus
you,
Shaw
I
thing.
feel like this is the right
Dom
answer.
and Shaw on the top.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is Dom jumping in the air to punch down at Shaw. Like, this is...
Flying
Man,
punch.
I think I've made the right choice here.
I think that's a
you
pretty
did
good
too,
one.
bud. Yeah.
Wow. Good answer. Good answer.
I'm glad we had that
Add it to
question.
the list.
Top 4 on the board. Number 1,
All right.
Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, 2002. Startup Resonance Smashed Ice. Don't know what that means. Exciting. When you get to that, let us know, because I want to hear you, and I also want you to like talk about, like, I want you on that episode to like be like really about the Fast and Furious, and, like, to the point where you confuse your co-host, be like, why do you keep bringing this up? Be like, you don't see that this is so Fast and Furious?
It's every 2 weeks, and this is like the 26th Godzilla film. So yeah, we'll get there.
So in a year.
In a
We'll
year,
get
perfect.
there in a while.
Next Valentine's Day, we're calling
I
you.
won't forget it. You're not wrong. It's not like it's gonna get out of my head at this point.
Perfect. Okay, so Fast and Furious 6, favorite moments, least favorite moments. Was this, in the back half of things, is there a point where the franchise for you becomes less enjoyable? Like, are you more of the car early movies? Again, I could look at your list, I'm not going to. The car movies, the action movies, the sort of later where it's just like superstar cast. Like, what's your favorite era? Because again, Godzilla question, eras, show era, whatever. What's your favorite era of the Fast and Furious?
Do you have labels for the eras of Fast and Furious?
They're loosey goosey. It's like one and 2, and then
Listeners
4 through
have emailed
7.
in things, and I don't remember because we're like, oh wow, that is like really well broken down. Maybe it was Randy, and I don't remember because again, in out.
Yeah.
It's right because like 1 and 2 is like and even like 1 and 2 are like separate from each other. It's such a weird.
Yeah,
like,
but 4 through 7 is
4
one
through 7 is
era.
clearly
So
like
kind of
it's a Lin period, but 3 is like
Yeah.
a spin-off basically. It just happens to be within the
Yeah.
universe. No, I would definitely like. Granted, I'm not the biggest fan of 4, but I do think the Lin era is my favorite like era of Fast and Furious because it has 5 and 7 and 6 all in there. And I was right, 6 is my number 4 in the Fast and Furious franchise. So yeah, I mean, yeah, this is within my favorite era of these films, and I think there's just a happy medium between the ensemble at play and the action that's going on here. I think that's probably like the reason why I would like highlight this area. Was there anything else to the question?
No. That's. I think that's the right. I mean, it's, it's all the right answer, but like that feels like the one that like I came on board with and is the most exciting. And like when he was coming back to do 10 before he dipped and no longer did 10, it was just like, oh.
I have such a like because I wouldn't say I was ride or die since the beginning. I watched all of the films, but the weird thing is I was such a big fan of what 3 was doing, and then like 4 got me excited because like Lin was coming back, and then he like got everybody involved again. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I was disappointed by there's aspects of I don't hate 4. It's by default it's like my least favorite.
It's an A tier. It's a lower A tier. I understand.
It's a lower A tier. Sure, we'll go with that. So then when 5 came along, and like just the trailers alone, and like The Rock being involved in it at like peak rock period, like I'm like, this looks phenomenal, and it was. So 6 is like the ultimate victory lap for me, as far as like we're just gonna take all these things and put it in another movie. What's interesting about 6, to me, I was watching it. I was this will connect as I'm saying this. I was talking.
It also doesn't have to. That this show just needs content.
Fair enough. I was talking about Avengers: Age of Ultron the other day for another podcast that I'm co-hosting on, and the thing that's observed about that one that we were talking about is that's the only Avengers film of the 4 that's just like a week in the life of Avengers. It's not like the beginning of them. It's not this greater world at war. It's just more of like, what is it when they're just a team and they have to do a thing? Like that's the only one that's that example of that. And that's what Fast and Furious 6 feels like to me. It's the only one where there are significant things that happen. Letty comes back, they go back to the United States. But for the most part, it's pretty much the team gets to go together and do a mission. Like it's not about anything more significant.
Saving the world.
Yeah, exactly. They're not it's just more of it's one of these. It's another like average mission for the Fast Gang.
Yeah, because like 5 is like building the team.
Yeah.
7 is like, Gisella's gone. Brian obviously is gone at the end for different reasons.
There's
It sort of
extreme
feels like
stakes.
not the breakup of the team or whatever. But yeah, 6 is just like call them up.
Yeah,
Get 'em.
call
Yeah,
let's
do it.
Assemble the crew. Let's do this thing. The only people The Rock knows that can help with this elite SAS is a criminal on the run that he does not like, and his people that can also work with him to solve it. That's it. That's the only people he knows.
There's something sort of remarkable to me about this movie in that when we watch Fast Five, you're like, oh, like The Rock's appearance is an event. It's a moment. It's just like he shows up, like we get the back camera, like we see him like from behind, and then he shows up like 20 minutes or 25 minutes of movie. It's just like, okay, this is a thing. And here it's like, it's not the opening scene, but like after the cold open where Mia's giving birth, really the first person we see is Hobbs. And it's just like, okay, so like he's here now. Like he is part of the team. He's part of these movies. You better be on board because like it's his franchise now. Even though it's not, it is. And sorry to Mr. Vin.
Starting the movie out, the first thing I thought was,
You're a father now, Brian?
yeah, we have a guy named Brian here, daddy jacking the movie right
know.
off the rip.
I know.
Where's Brian Rodriguez when we need him?
My first note is you're a father now, Brian.
This is such a weird movie to look at when it's 2013 because it's like Dwayne Johnson's third build, and like he would not accept that today. Like that's not a thing.
No.
He would not be like a third build. Hold on.
Well, to be honest, by this point, like we've crested the mountain and we're coming down the mountain a little bit, right? Like,
I feel like it, right?
so he might be like, all right, I'll take third.
What do you think, Aaron?
Oh,
Do you
in
think
Fast
that
in Fast X Part 2, he's definitely taking the and. No question.
Well, if you notice, in the Fast and Furious movies, there are now like 3 wits and 3 ands.
Oh,
like there are so
he'll
many.
take an and. Like unless there's somebody that he deems bigger than himself that's in that movie, he's taking the and, like the final and.
Well, it's going to be like, it's like with Jason Statham, with Helen Mirren, with Rita Moreno, with Charlize Theron.
All the action greats.
That's just
All
I
4 of
can't
those.
imagine the legal battles of just like,
That's all it is. It's all ego. He's not going to sit there and be third. He's definitely not going to be fifth. Like he'll be an and it'll be like unless they get some like, unless like Denzel signs up to be the ultimate villain or like Keanu or something like that. Like even that, like I don't see him doing anything but like I'm taking the ultimate and me as Hobbs.
we were going to this music festival, and when the poster came out, and one artist on the top had like a special font, and we're like, and everybody was trying to figure out like, what does this mean? Like, are they doing like some kind of special act or what like that? And eventually we found out like from people running the festival, it's just like, oh no, they just did the Rock ego thing, that they were like, no, my name needs to be bigger than everybody else's, and they just gave themselves like some weird font, and you're like, oh cool. That is really dumb. But you guys talking about the and in this thing made me think the same thing.
I'm looking back now. I'm watching Fast 10 on my computer. We get a with Helen Mirren, with Brie Larson, with Rita Moreno,
Greats.
and Jason Statham, and Jason Momoa,
Okay.
and Charlize Theron.
Okay.
And then it goes into the like below the lesser whatever. But that's also before Hobbs shows up in the credits. So like The Rock would have been in there too.
If it wouldn't have been a spoiler, yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's it's real. It's real out
Do you
here.
still think, Aaron, that The Rock is going to be in Fast X Part 2? Because we've been talking about it.
Yes. Yeah, I do. If it really is the like intended on being the final the final reckoning of the Fast and Furious franchise, and not just like because Vin, he'll be like, oh, actually we're thinking about maybe doing it 2 parts, like the second part.
Now, Aaron, as a California native, on the same topic, does Los Angeles need Fast and Furious right now?
In what sense?
Do you follow Vin Diesel's Instagram at all?
Vin Diesel's Instagram, every other post is him making behind the scenes content, interviewing producers and stuff about like how much Los Angeles needs Fast and Furious. He's like, Jordana called me last night and she just said, Vin, they need us. And he said, yes, they do. And he is on a one-man mission, and we're trying to figure out why it is.
To save you from the fires.
Joe's guess was basically he needs money, and he's trying to like position like we need to shoot here for real, and like Universal Comcast has to pay for it.
I think that Universal slashed his budget and told him he can't go gallivanting around the world, And so to be altruistic about it, he says that he's going to base it all in LA to help with the fires, like, and employ people. And it's just a plot to be like, I did this for the good of LA, when in reality they told him he can't shoot it in whatever country.
A couple things. One, I need to go back and listen to you guys' podcast during the Golden Globes when he said, "Hey, Dwayne," and I want to know what you're like the 1,000 of hours you guys spend talking about that. But
We spent a while talking about it.
I'm sure, and I have thoughts of myself. For one thing, I go up to LA now and again for screenings every week, and the streets do feel pretty empty of fast. Like, so LA could use a
Okay, yeah, empty of Fast specifically, not people in general, just of Fast.
Like, I'm for one thing, I'm constantly driving pretty slow in LA, guys. So I mean, right there is already a reason to have it. But it's hard to because like he's making a Riddick right now. It's not like Universal said no.
He's making a Riddick. He's making a Kojak. He's making a Rock'em Sock'em. And he's making a Fast and Furious.
I know, like, there's been a downturn in the box office wise as far as Fast is concerned, but at the same time, I don't think Universal is like just decided we're cutting ties with the Fast family. It's one of their premier franchises, regardless of its.
We don't think they're cutting ties. We just think they're cutting half the tie off and saying deal with the rest of the tie.
I don't think it's a benefit to them to suddenly try to be cost saving on a Fast movie if it is in fact going to be the last Fast movie. I don't think there's a benefit for them doing that. And that's also
But I think they're trying to recoup from last time.
You say recoup like they lost a ton of money. They didn't lose it.
No. It just in their eyes because it was all because of the stemming of like Justin Lin leaving and like them going so over budget when they had everybody sitting there for 2 weeks with no fucking director waiting to start the movie.
I'm not a movie producer, and I don't know how these things work, and I can only speculate. But a lot of that, along with 9 for that matter, with COVID, it's like shit happens. I mean, like if they, I can't say they could.
Good point.
They can't like assure you that before a movie's even been filmed that nothing's going to go wrong with Fast X Part 2, The Last Dance. But I'm sure they can anticipate having less drama because they don't have to worry about a director walking off midway through or a pandemic stopping things from happening completely. Those costs can, be measured a lot more clearly because it'll just be presumably a straight production. So it's hard for me to think that like suddenly Universal slashed a budget on a franchise that's only gotten bigger and presumably for a final film that will have the most cast members ever will have to utilize a good amount of money to make all that happen and like feel fitting in a way best for the family. So it's hard to say. What I can say is yes, LA does feel deprived of Fast right now. It is weird that there's been no real update on what's actually happening for this amount of time, given that it ended on such a big cliffhanger.
Well, the idea is they want to have the last one or the next one, whether it's 1 or 2, who knows? But it'll
be
June,
1, I'm sure.
Next June, well, let's wait.
Vin has said he's trying to do 2 more. He said it on his Instagram.
Next June is the 25th anniversary of the first movie, which makes sense to release it as the ceremonial beginning and the end, whatever. But they should really start shooting in the next couple of months. And as far as all the news and all the reports say, no one has seen a script yet. So
yeah. Also, I mean, I get the whole 25th anniversary thing, but when you look back at these movies, you don't look at the Fate of the Furious and be like, oh yeah, that was that April that coincided with 15 years ago. No one fucking cares after that.
No one cares.
That's a once kind of thing. So like, as much as it'd be great to get it to happen, as much as it'd be great to get it to happen on the 25th anniversary of the Fast and the Furious, ultimately, whatever. Do I think Vin definitely cares?
Here, though.
Vin,
yes.
I'm aware Vin cares, and I care about Vin, and so ipso facto. I care about that, but I'd rather see a film that got to get made because it was time to make it and we did the right amount of work on it, as opposed to we crammed in 17 main characters into a 7-month shoot with 2 months of post-production. This isn't X-Men First Class that we're dealing with here, which was famously made in under 9 months.
This is not a question that I prepared you with, so you can have a little bit of time to think about it, although it's, again, no wrong answers. Again, it being the oops, we should have covered that already. One idea I had last episode, last Fast and Furious, is what is the biggest oops of the movie? What is an error by a character that is unforgivable, the biggest mistake, obviously written into, not because we will cover the goofs in the next episode. We're not talking about like actual cinematic filmmaking goofs, but like what does a character do in this movie that is such a mistake that she's like, how did you, like, for instance, trusting Riley, like Hobbs putting all this faith into someone who is not a good person on or off screen. But what do you think is the biggest oops? Do you have an idea for the biggest oops of Fast and Furious 6?
Oops as in like plot related and not just like a thing I don't like in this movie, or
yeah, I mean you could either but more so plot related, but doesn't matter.
I prefer I would want to go with a plot related answer because I have a thing that I don't like in this movie. But as far as plot related oops,
what's the thing you don't like in the movie?
Is that not a later segment, or you want me to go into that?
No,
now?
you just do it now. There's no segments anymore.
The thing I always didn't like in this movie is when Ludacris and The Rock and Dwayne and Hobbs.
That's exactly what I was going to use for mine.
When they go to the auction and the guy's like, you guys are too urban, basically. I can use other words, but I won't. You don't belong here. You don't look like you have the money. And like that's one thing. Like, all right, that's a weird way to go with this. But then it's like, okay, not only do we buy all the cars because we actually do have all the money and you suck, but we're gonna strip you of your clothes and make you walk out half naked. It's like, that's a lot. I think there's other clever ways. Like, it's not remotely funny. That's my main issue with it.
No.
Like, even if you wanted to pull something like that off, okay, but like, there's just nothing funny about it. So it's like, why did we spend this time with this? It's like a weird, like, we need Ludacris and The Rock to get along in a scene. Why? People love them together. Do they? All right, how about this? And it's like, this is the idea you came up with? I just don't. It doesn't do anything for me.
I 100% agree with you. I have in my notes, and I wanted to bring it up, that watching that scene this time, I realized how much more grating it gets every time I rewatch this movie specifically. And it's like just that one scene. And like, if you've ever been to anywhere that like has like really rich people buying really rich people shit, this guy's not dumb enough to like possibly tank off the rip, right? Like any like good rich person salesman is going to treat them really well just in case they have money and want to buy something. One, and then you're right. The flip side of like that, now we're going to steal his pants is like, that's not funny. That's just like, weird. Why are you tormenting this guy?
It's a weird way to punish somebody.
Yeah,
let alone
like you could have done
the logic of it. It's like, I want to service you in any way possible. You guys have already bought all these cars.
I gave you a giant commission check.
I will gladly take my clothes off to prove that point. Like, it's such a, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything for me.
They were just doing their podcast, two people of color talking auctions.
Yeah.
Speaking of like things that'll get more grating, I feel like that's going to feel the same way for the Pete Davidson scene in Fast X. Every time we watch that movie,
yes,
that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, the thing I just don't like, I mean, yeah, trusting Riley's a pretty good one. It doesn't help that she's played by Gina Carano either. But
isn't it fitting that we see Gina Carano start in Russia just with the current temperature of happening?
That's why I like this movie. I mean, it's pretty damn solid. That's why I have it so high. Like, there's not a lot that I like disagree with on a plot basis on how they go about everything. So yeah, it might be that just because like what else? I don't know offhand. Like what else you could throw at this? What I know these characters for and how these movies work. There's not a lot here that I would like dispose of in that reason.
Yeah,
Hobbs being all for this random person who we don't get nearly as good of an intro for as we do with Mrs. Hemsworth, Elena.
Yeah.
They're not shortcutting Hobbs, but like I think I've said before, Hobbs is never better than he is in Fast 5. Like every iteration since is just watering him down a bit more. 6, I was happy to revisit and see like, okay, he's still pretty Hobbsy in this. He's not as intense as 5 because he's not an antagonist like he is in 5 for most of the movie. So here he gets to like play on their team. So he's still doing just the goatee. Not as sweaty because it's a little colder outside. So I can forgive that. He kind of drops the ball. I mean, like, yeah, Gina Carano, she's my girl. Let me do this.
We have another friend who had I think it's on hiatus now, the Rocky Maivia picture show, and one of the things is basically how good of a role. What was the question? It was like do
you give it a WrestleMania?
It was
SummerSlam. Well, I forget his rankings. He had like a 1 through 5.
It was a scale of 1 to 5.
Awesome.
Yeah, how good of a role is it for The Rock? And I remember like 5. We did 5. We're like, this is like maybe his best role, but I don't think he's like Hobbs yet. Like he's different. Like he's not goofy and he's not he's too serious in that role. I think it's different. But here
6, I think curves it, and it's like a perfect combination for me. Yeah.
Sorry, Nate. I know that you are probably listening. he's not. And I don't remember the metrics.
This one-on-one with the Great was the top.
Hmm.
I have an oops that didn't exist that I thought about this time.
Okay.
That I think that they should have done, and they missed not doing it. How funny would it have been if Braga would have also been Shaw, and they just ran the same thing back? And Braga's just talking about Shaw, and
really
it's
good.
the same bit as the previous movie. I was like watching it this time, and I was like, that would have really fucking hit if they'd have been like, it's this guy again? Last time he was pretending to be the other guy, and they just did the same joke again. I would have really liked it.
We only find out about Braga and Shaw and like that connection because when they go to the like scene where Riley and Giselle are going down, right, and they're like doing the whole thing, there's the shootout and the guy dies, and as he's dying he says Braga, and I think we're probably led to believe that like he recognizes Giselle from working together with under Braga, whatever, but like I'm wondering if he would have said Braga even if he didn't like we don't know that he worked with Giselle, like we just sort of assume, and then she knows what Braga means, but like would he still have said Braga if it was another person over him? And would it have meant anything if it was like Letty or Riley or somebody else not Giselle hearing Braga who doesn't necessarily know Braga?
I don't think he recognizes her. I think that it was like that was the link. He was saying the name, and she happened to recognize.
But why would he say that like as he's dying? Like what's he doing there? Is he trying to redeem himself? Like I don't understand.
Yes, well, absolutely. That's a fast ingredient right there. All the villains get redeemed in some way, and this is a shorter span of time for them to do so. But in the logic of Fast and Furious, anyone can be redeemed with just a nice talking to or whatnot. So if Giselle in a quick bit of like, oh no, you're dying, we got to get through this. It's a sped up version of the other characters that have a more significant redemption, quote unquote redemption for some of them, but. For him, it's like, yeah, this minor character, just, tell me, do the good thing. You're dying. You got to do the good thing. It's like, Brock, I get it. I get where that comes from. We have to operate again on fast logic and not, the world. But I feel like I can make that I think that applies in this way.
Okay.
I thought of another one as far as oopsie, which I think comes more from the fact, and now it doesn't even apply anymore because she comes back and X, but because like we don't know that Shaw lives until we get to Furious 7, but then like the presumption is, wait, so he can survive falling out the back of a plane, but Giselle can't, and we have to go along with that for multiple movies.
Yeah, so Owen Shaw survives.
Yes,
Giselle,
in the hospital,
much smaller fall, just off the back of a Jeep.
Seems like a small
dies.
Fall. Yeah.
Also, like. I understand that she's not going to come back for, for her views on whatever, but like Gina Carano gets harpooned in the chest, but she's wearing like a vest and she kind of falls like 30 feet. Like, again, probably dead. We don't see a body though, but like if Giselle lives, if Owen lives, Riley could live too.
Now with the harpoon, are we assuming it just like gave her a big push? It didn't go into her in any capacity?
I think it had to impale her.
It was pretty strong. It went through fucking concrete back at the Batcave that they're at.
Wrong team, bitch. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
I just feel like it could have gotten entangled with her. I think of it the most gory details of Mary where not only did she get plunged out of the side of the plane, but she's also getting like dragged by the
yes.
So.
Well, do you think like after Letty shoots her, does she like hold on to the harpoon gun, or she just like let the harpoon gun go?
It's
and, like...
through her.
No. I'm not saying Riley. I'm saying Letty. Letty shoots and then keeps the gun, or just like lets the gun go.
I assume she lets it go and the gun just like...
So Riley and harpoon gun are just flying together.
Well, I don't know if the harpoon gun goes out the door. I'm thinking maybe it's like stuck in the plane still.
Oh yeah, it does the like sideways
exactly.
between the door
maybe
frames.
You know who gets me here with this. Like that's exactly the image I had in my head, and he said it out loud. It was great.
So she's dangling.
Yeah, I think she's...
Yeah, and being drugged by the plane along the runway.
And then presumably if that's happening, let's say she survives. Let's say she's still hanging on and she's still alive though. The plane explodes. I mean, she's gonna.
Also true.
Only as we've found out multiple times, only Vin Diesel is not allergic to jet fuel, so she's burned up completely.
What is the cargo on the plane?
M&Ms and zoo animals.
No, because they have like giant, like crated shit and like their vehicles and stuff. Like, who's running logistics to load this cargo plane for them, and what do they have to carry?
I wish it was DVD players, and then like there's a scene where they knock one open, and Vin Diesel sees it. They're like, "Oh, just like home." Mid fight, just looks at the camera. It's the worst scene in the movie. That's why they deleted it.
I mean, it's like a military car. It's a huge plane. There are vehicles.
Huge plane. It's their vehicles, but I'm saying, like, as a criminal empire, how much shit do you have to carry? Like, how much are you camping with?
It's like coffee beans full of cocaine or something like that.
What is Shaw doing? Like, what is his crime? Like, what is he?
That's what I mean.
His whole he's MacGuffin the movie. Like that's his whole deal, right? He wants a computer chip that does something. Well, isn't it? Does the computer chip go to whatever the fuck the God's Eye? Is that part of it? Is that like a whole? Is that connected?
No, God's Eye comes back later.
God's Eye's in 7. It's not in this one.
I know it's not in this, but I mean, does it factor in like because Charlize Theron's all like I'm responsible for it. I controlled everybody all along. That whole deal, like maybe this computer chip was a factor in.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Don't give me maybe. You guys are the experts here. If you guys can
No,
tell me,
because we never really talk about Shaw's crime.
if you guys can tell me where John Cena is in this movie, I'm sure you can tell me what Charlize Theron's up to.
No, it just because it's like a different computer chip. They just do computer chip twice. I think that this one is just like he just wants the computer chip, right? Like
just because he wants it.
Yeah, but he also has to carry all this shit with him because he's a criminal that needs a cargo plane.
Oh, here we go. He's Owen is stealing composed and created an EMP device called Nightshade that he's going to sell to somebody.
Right, yes, Nightshade.
And he's going to sell that to somebody. Because if there's one thing we can clearly tell by Shaw, it's that he's super poor and needs to sell something for a high price.
Yeah.
As of all these villains. They're always very poor, yet have every weapon in every location, everything possible that they need.
Custom vehicles.
Yeah. They can pay off anybody.
Teams of 10 people that are apparently being paid.
That's how villainy works. You're poor until you're not.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a military-grade EMP capable of blackout attacks on entire countries. He wants to sell to the highest bidder, likely a rogue nation terrorist organization for billions. His strategy is precision, speed, and efficiency, emphasizing a code faster than fear, shadow above the system.
That seems God's Eye adjacent. I'm gonna put that.
Well, it's all
out there.
this is on the ascension of like it's tech, right? Tech is the big evil.
Yeah, I'm sure Fast X Part 2, Return to the Braga, that'll probably incorporate Nightshade and God's Eye and Satan's Elbow and like all these other technology things that are the worst. That'll be real challenging for Dom to have to solve.
This being the oops lap, I've been going through the goofs of each movie, and we'll talk about those next episode. But there was a goof that was like a character error or whatever, and then like we don't understand why Owen. I'm not saying we don't understand, but like it's basically written like we don't understand why Owen is like so regimented and military and by the book, and then we get on that bridge with the tank and he's just like running over civilians. It's like, yeah, not really a goof, but like it is a good question. Like, why does he just like sort of about face and just like become like a killing machine?
No, there's a
movie.
Reason. There's a reason. With
movie.
There's a reason for that.
What's the reason?
Beyond the fact that he has a dark sense of humor, because he says, "Let's have some fun." His purpose is to mess up Dom and their guys' plan. Like he sees that these guys are going to be after him. It's like, okay, what can I do that'll make Dom stop going after me and go do something else? Kill innocent people. So Dom's gonna they have to reorient their priorities to saving people as opposed to stopping Shaw. I get that logic because Shaw knows Dom will absolutely care about civilians getting in the way of all this.
But does he?
Yes, it works. I mean, it doesn't work for I mean, well, it kind of worked. He wanted to get caught the whole time or whatever the play. Like, it doesn't matter. Regardless, what I'm saying is, instead of just straight up taking out Shaw, he knows Dom and his family are going to want to not let other people die. So they'll be putting that as their priority. Could Shaw have predicted that they would have the most elaborate way of doing both at the same time because what they do best is improvise? As Paul Walker states, no.
No.
We do what we do best. We improvise.
Which is like, and every time I hear the line, it's like, is that the thing you do best? I feel like I feel like in Brazil, the coordinated safe escape heist was pretty not improvised, but whatever.
I think very objectively, the thing they do best is drive. Like that's just what they do best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, B cars.
Yep.
Yeah.
That does bring me to a thing that I got annoyed with when Fast 6 came, not at movie, but at people reacting to the movie, where they talk about and this is when superhero movies were also getting like hit for having lots of destruction going on without care for like civilian lives, and people were going at Fast 6 or being like, look at all these people dying on this bridge and the Dom just doesn't care. And like, I get that these movies can be silly to some people or what have you, but it's not hard to just listen to the dialogue. Like he clearly states, we have to stop this tank from killing people. We need to get on that immediately. That's bad. It's not just like they're driving around not caring that there's cars getting crushed and people dying. It's very much part of their whole deal. That's the whole That's why they're good characters. They actually do care about these things.
So here's a question about the tank, and I think it's an obvious answer, but if things were reversed, and I think, Joe was saying before that this is not a movie where they save the world, they're just like, theoretically, Nightshade could cause global destruction.
Sure.
We have to stop it. It's less imminent than nuclear bomb or whatever, right? Nuclear football
virus
in Fate.
Yeah.
If the movies were reversed and they had gone to space or they had stopped a nuke or whatever and just a tank rolls out, do you think any of them bat an eye at a tank? Because, like, Roman's like, I'm sorry, you say they have a tank? It's like, bro, in 3 movies, you're going to be in outer space in a Fiero. Like, you have no idea what's going to come. But, like, if this movie, as it is, comes after 9 and we know what Roman knows from going to Russia and going, on the ice.
Submarine,
and going to outer space in F9, does he bat an eye at a tank just like, okay, we got this?
No, not at 1. If there was like 6 tanks, that may be like, oh, that's a challenge.
But they're like, oh, we did this, we got this, we're good.
I think they leveled up enough that like they have the numbers against a tank no matter what.
Tank, let's be honest, a tank is not that hard of a problem to solve. I mean, it's a tank. It only has so many moves it can make. It's very slow also in general. The reason that it became a higher stakes thing for this movie is because it was on a bridge with civilians. Like,
Yeah, true.
You just take out a tread, right?
A bridge that's divided in 2, no less, which makes for some of the coolest stunts in this movie.
I think that's the best stunts in the franchise. I think that like the tank bridge thing is like the most iconic when I think about it.
I agree with you. I think 6 has some of the coolest like real world stunts from this movie because like 7 and beyond, it goes pretty far as the believability of or at least the how I like to call this a grounded series, but 7 and beyond we go a little past the word grounded being taken all that seriously.
Wait, do you think that this movie is grounded?
No, I'm not.
It's in a 30-mile.
You're saying in the scale,
in the scale
sure.
of things, like obviously in terms of like reality, no, it doesn't. But like compared to superhero movies that flying
Sure.
characters and nanobites and what have. This is still set in a world that exists to some degree, right? It's cars,
that has physics and gravity.
Yes, exactly. It's the series has always functioned by its own logic as far as how we use physics, but in terms of the capability of these characters and something that seems placed in a realistic setting, this one has really great versions of how to utilize that. Is it ridiculous when like Vin Diesel Superman's multiple times in this film, but the one where he catches Letty and then falls into a windshield's like, block that off. Of course, that's ridiculous. But in terms of like watching those stunts take place in the environments they're set in, this one has some really cool stuff that I always love watching. And so I love rewatching 6 because it feels like the one that I rewatched the least. Yeah, that feels accurate. Yet I like it a lot more than at least 4 other of these movies. So.
A thing I realized this time, and I think this is probably true of most movies, like most action movies and most movies with like this kind of villain, is that it feels like the real villain in most of these movies, really kind of starting in 5, is just ego. Like, Reyes is like, I know how to stop these guys. I'm going to put all my money in one place. Like, it's going to be in a cop. It's going to be fine. And then here, Shaw's just like, no, I'm just better than them. Like, there's something about, like...
Braga's like that, too. Braga's like... He's pretty egocentric as well.
Mm-hmm. So, like, there's... I mean, I think that's true of a lot of things, but it feels like really we're ramping up. And, like, Cypher's ego is, I am smarter than everyone, right? Shaw's ego, Deckard Shaw's like, I am a ruthless killing machine that I am going to be able to kill all of you.
That's fair. It's less about, like, a... world plots. It's more of a side thing for them where like Carter Verone is like, I just want to ship a bunch of drugs, and Braga's also like, I just want to ship a bunch of drugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Johnny Tran's like, you insulted my family. I mean, there's a little bit like, and
also I deal with drugs.
Like, Tokyo Drift is also you fucked up our drugs, like so it's the same thing. So drugs and then ego. Okay, cool.
But yeah, I see what you're saying though. As far as the rest, even Jaimon Hansu is like, sure, God's Eye. Also, I need to get rid of this guy. Like he's really, really harsh on my vibe.
We talked a couple times now about Fast 10 and like Giselle coming back, and there's something in this movie, like right before the World's Longest Runway, where they're all like in that bunker base getting ready, and Han and Giselle are planning Tokyo, and he goes, I hear Tokyo's nice, right? It really just like this time, and this we've seen this movie now a couple, like 2-3 times, whatever, since 10 came out. I guess also plus the Randy cut. It really feels to me like I wish Giselle had been like discovered in the world, like how Mia and Letty go to Tokyo to find Han, right? Because they find like this trail of clues and they go find him. Giselle just popping up feels...
No, but she was discovered because she's only there because Cypher tells Letty, and so Cypher did discover her.
I know, but we didn't see that though. That's what I mean.
You're right. Okay.
Like I just want like there's something just like, oh, like if we get clues that Giselle is still alive, but also I know like there has to be an economy of storytelling, and like we can't just like everybody who's quote unquote dead is not dead, and we also have to see why they're not like we will get in the next movie, assuming Giselle is in the movie, we will know how she is still alive. We will see that, but it feels here just like it feels like a moment for the audience because like Letty doesn't really give a shit about Giselle. Like it's not like they're like BFFs, like they're friends. But like Letty seemed just like
they all pulled off the Brazil job together. Sure, they're
No, Letty was not in Brazil.
Oh, no, I'm thinking. Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Letty was dead.
Sorry.
Letty's So like the whole Giselle arc is in place of Letty. Like Michelle Rodriguez's character, like she's not really in 4 much, not in 5 at all till the credit scene, and in 6 she's on the other side of things.
And then she dies, and they like swap back.
Mm-hmm. So she sees Giselle, and she's just like, "Oh, I think that's that girl who was around when I wasn't there."
2 things. One, since you reminded me that Letty wasn't in 5, I was just thinking that Fast 5 has maybe one of my favorite end credit scenes of all time, since it's Eva Mendes walking up to the Rock and being like, "Here's this," and it's a picture of Michelle Rodriguez like, "This is fucking crazy. This is the greatest thing. This is so satisfying for specifically people like me."
Well, do you know, we mention this every time that scene comes up, do you know that Michelle Rodriguez did not know she was written back into the franchise until she saw this movie in theaters?
That makes it better. That makes it better.
She saw 5 in theaters?
That makes it better.
Yeah, she sees her face, and she's like, "Oh,
she got back from Pandora, and it's like, oh my god, look at this." Doesn't seem obvious how she gets like, she falls on a runway, she rolls around a few times, like, oh no.
Well, yeah, but then like, why doesn't she find Han?
And then like Kurt Russell comes and picks her up. It's like, "Hey, you got to join my team." Like that seems like entirely exactly what the arc of this is going to amount to.
Wouldn't she seek out Han? Like if Han's still alive, like there's got to be some
Kurt
kind
Russell's
of, like...
got like multiple tricks up. Especially, aren't you guys the ones that believe he's like secretly the bad guy in all this?
Joe does. Although
I do.
That becomes less and less likely every day because by the fact
I feel like it's no, because she's on their side, I guess, so basically less likely. But I mean, I still think he has a lot of moves he hasn't told us yet, or at least the Nobody Society, whatever the fuck. Like
it just seems like the franchise does not give a shit about him anymore. Like we have moved on
they,
to
they
something
left him
else.
in the dark. Mm-hmm. After 10, like we
I
thought
don't
that
agree.
at the end of 9.
I don't think, especially with Vin, who's the D&D guy. I think everything can be placed in a box, and the box can be brought back out when necessary.
Speaking of D&D, as a teaser for the next episode, Joe, there is a video on Vin's Instagram of him and Michelle playing D&D with the caption, "Don't ask, haha," or something like that. So I did not watch the video. I just saw that he posted.
Oh my god, I'm so ready.
And he's like rolling the dice, and like there's like the Dungeon Master like board and like the camera. So just get ready for next week because
I need to see what Vin's dungeon looks like.
Yeah, I don't think you take Nobody and put him in like cryptic video mode unless you have a plan for him later on. I don't think there's
hopefully
if they wanted to get rid of Nobody, they just have him sprawled out in the plane in the jungle or whatever in 9 to be like, "Oh, I'm dying. Make sure you get my son something," or whatever Scott Eastwood is.
Okay, so here, Aaron, I want you to ballpark something for me. You know story structure, you know resolution, you know how to give a happy end, just like in terms of like how movies end satisfyingly. Think about all of the balls that are up in the air in terms of plot, in terms of character, in terms of what we need to know as an audience. How much time do we need to wrap up the big plot lines left in the franchise? Because it feels like it's more time than we're going to have.
7 hours, yeah,
of commercial-free football.
I think surprisingly not that much.
Really?
Yeah, because everyone's already on Dom's side. There's no one like unless they really make it like a Sinister Six and Carter Verone and Braga and whoever the fuck else comes back to be on Team Jason Momoa. Everyone is pretty much with Dom at this point. Charlize is with them. The Nobodies are presumably with them.
That's
Giselle's
a good point.
With them. Like it's not like they have to like work really hard to be like, "Look, I know we're fighting, but we have to work against this evil thing over here." No, everyone already hates Momoa, so it's like it's just a matter of we need to regroup, we need to attack him head on, or do what we do best, improvise and take down Momoa. Then barbecue at Dom's house. The end. Like that's it. Like I get that there's a lot of pieces out there, but I don't think the pieces are that disparate to have to worry about the logical means of getting them all together again because the hard work's already done as far as having you all aligned with having a central enemy that you're all going for.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good
So
point.
where does Mr. Nobody fall into, if you're saying that this wraps up neatly, is he on our side or their side, or is he, because he's got to come back in some way, and they also have to reintroduce him in a way that, like, because audiences have not seen him on screen other than flashbacks in 9 since 8.
he could be like a doc. This is such a stupid reference. He could be like a Dr. Claw, like hanging out in the shadows, like, oh, looks like you beat Momoa, but maybe don't worry, I'm still out there. And then you get the spin-off Fast and Furious movies with the deal with like the rest of him or something. Like,
So he is a bad guy, you think?
I think if that's the route they choose, I think he would be a dangling thread left out there to deal with in future iterations of this series. If not, he would come in and like save it just the right, like he's on the sub with Giselle or something, right? It'd be like, look,
I told
I had
you
to go
I had
into
to get
hiding,
free.
and I had to wait till it was just the right time to come out. And you know, guess what? Here it is. I got Giselle here with the sub that we secretly have, and I have Hobbs en route to join us as well. And Shaw, don't worry, we got not only Shaw, we got the sister and the brother coming too. Everybody, it's a whole family affair. Those other two guys that are gambling down south, they're back. Don't worry, we're all in the sub. It's a big sub. Subs are not small. We got them all here.
Aaron, I needed you to talk me off a ledge. I'm going to take us on another tangent too. The more I've been thinking about this, the more when I think Fast X Part 2 comes out, that there is a likely chance that we just wind up at the barbecue already and go, wow, that was crazy. and they don't address the entire cliffhanger of the end of it. What do you think about that?
It's like a clip show where they really played in reverse. Like we really had we had a sticky situation over there, didn't we? Right? And there's like it's like the briefest of flashbacks.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I'm like John Cena swooping in on a helicopter to pick up Don and his son. He's like, I thought you died. Didn't. Here's my helicopter, and he pumps him, grabs him. Yeah,
they're like, wow. And they're just all sitting around drinking beers going, that was crazy. Because like I have a very real thought that might happen.
Here's a related-ish question to the last few questions we were having. If you are tasked to write the screenplay for the final movie to give a satisfying ending, are we
going to talk about Fast and Furious 6 ever again on this episode?
Are you excited or are you worried about how much you have to resolve and the egos you have to quell? Because like if you're gonna get Academy Award winner Brie Larson back, you better give her something substantial to do.
I'm going off the cuff with ideas of how to make this script work in seconds. Surely, an actual screenwriter could actually make this work given a month or 2 months or a year.
You would think to do but these screenwriters have proven they do not rewatch these movies.
And yet it's still all we have all made it fit, so it all works to some degree. I remember the ego question. Am I worried about what exactly? About the
like having to figure out a way to give all of these people with all the withs, all the ands, something meaningful to do in a way that resolves, that gives audiences a happy conclusion.
I mean, am I worried about that? Like, no, because I know these movies. Like, if it was something else that was, if it's a Robert Altman ensemble, like, sure, I'd like to have the various actors involved, like, have things to do that, mean something to their character and have arcs and really contribute to the overall narrative and themes of it. This is Fast and Furious. I don't need, like, Ludacris to, like, secretly realize, you know what, I should have went to MIT and, like, do it. Like, I don't, like, I don't need like that level of character depth to justify why these people just wanted to hang out in a fun movie set for a while. As far as egos are concerned, the only one that seems to be concerning is Dwayne, and he's here already. Whether or not he shoots a scene in the same room with Diesel, I mean, it's been 15 years, so I could get by without worrying about if that actually happens or not at this point. Everybody else, I have opinions about Vin Diesel, and one of them is I think he genuinely does have friends with all these people, and they like working with him. And there's this weird narrative that wants to form for other reasons that I don't feel like getting into, that want to take down this guy that successfully produced a massive franchise for Universal. I don't know why the assumption is Brie Larson and Rita Moreno want to work on Fast and Furious films because they know how much of a dick Vin Diesel is. That's not how that works. You don't say yes to those because the guy sucks. That's not how that shit works. There's other franchises they can choose from. She has one.
So you're Team Vin.
I've been Team Vin.
Or you Team Pussy.
Sorry, well played.
I'm Team Vin, and I think things that have gone out about Dwayne Johnson have only shown that I think I've been right about Team Vin over the years. And I like The Rock. I like watching Dwayne in movies. I wish they'd make less lazy choices, and I think the Safdie Brothers movie will be a nice test for him to do something. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the product he's been putting out as of late, not the best. And the stories that come with it, not the greatest. So meanwhile, Vin Diesel's like, obviously, whatever other allegations, that's its own thing, and I feel bad about whoever's involved for these things to be, have some kind of error to them. But regardless, in terms of his movie making, I like that he just kind of does his own thing and doesn't really care too much about what people are saying. He's like, all right, whatever, you don't like my thing, fine. I still have this franchise. I still get to make Riddick movies every now and then too. Like, whatever, I'll do my thing
True.
and stay in my corner. So, like, ego-wise, no, I don't think there's a worry that I have about balancing all of those on set, especially if Dwayne Johnson either they actually have just figured things out, or as the other theory goes, they were never against each other, and this is all a big act.
It was wrestling promo, which is what I thought for a while too. Yeah,
If that was always the case, or they just don't film in the same room and there's no problem to begin with. So, I guess the biggest factor is less about ego, more about time. There's a lot of people here. Can we make all these schedules work and make it not feel like it's like filmed so specifically separate from each other, which 10 kind of did when you have Tyrese and them silo it off into their own adventure that feels very disparate from the rest of the movie, especially when you have a release date that you seem to want to get to. I have no idea. I have no idea what that plan is going to look like. I don't envy being the coordinator on that set at all.
Okay, let's get back to Fast and Furious 6 since you want to talk about Fast and Furious 6. What do you want to talk
The
about?
movie I
Favorite
watched?
moments, least favorite moments?
Yeah, sure.
An hour into the podcast, let's talk about it.
we just had your brain here, and I had much more interesting questions than to talk about Fast and Furious 6 for
We
me.
can get back to
personally.
go off. Joe too. What do you
I think it's like with every passing week, what we talk about is like it feels crazier that we don't know what's happening with the future.
I agree with that.
Again, we're overthinking it because like
It's
our
us,
it's
yeah.
our side hustle to overthink.
I haven't
Fast and
overthought
Furious
anything.
movies.
Everything's
But-
been perfectly balanced in my mind.
But like, I just want to know. Like, I'm like, what are they going to do, and when are they going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I'm just putting pure speculation out about a lot of things, but I also just try not to get too caught up in it, where it's like,
Sure.
it'll happen when it
Yeah,
happens.
fair.
I'm happy to speculate and, go off of very quickly timed responses to your questions in regards to how this makes sense or what will happen, just because I can do that. But am I sitting down and being like, oh, damn, rough day again. That guy in the office did something. Also, what's happening with the Fast and Furious franchise? It's
Which is how I exist at all
but
times.
I mean, you asking this question, like I've brought it up multiple times this week to some of my other critic friends. Like, what is going on with that Fast and Furious franchise? Not because I'm staying awake
No
at night
one
about
knows.
it, but just because it's like every now and then you're like, huh, that is a pretty major cliffhanger to have no announcement about whatsoever on. Even at least like Mission Impossible, we knew was filming. At least Spider-Man, we know people are dying to get that movie made. This is like, huh. really hasn't been any update on that whatsoever, which is a little odd.
And we had the Super Bowl commercial the other time, like before 9 came out. Or
There was a good half a second where I watched that Super Bowl commercial, this Super Bowl commercial with Vin and Michelle Rodriguez, and I'm like, did this get past me? Like, did they film some of this movie? Did I completely draw like my head? This is the. It's like watching the what is it the first movie, watching the whole Nas race that's like 10 seconds long but it takes like 6 minutes. Like that was my head for like a real half a second. Like, wait a minute, are we getting a
you're just watching everything in
are
slow
we getting
motion.
a teaser right now for Fast X Part 2? Did I know nothing about this? Oh my god! And then they're like, no, it's just for whatever. It's not, doesn't matter.
Haagen-Dazs.
Ludacris comes in, it's like, hey guys, move, get out the way. Ice cream's on
Now,
the way.
Aaron, on the other side of that coin, we were on top of this in September and had no idea what it was until about a month before the Super Bowl. So like, we're like, oh, are they shoot? They can't be shooting. So
Because Vin kept posting like pictures of him with cars and him with Michelle Rodriguez, and everybody's like, are they shooting? And
I
we're
think
like,
subconsciously
I don't think
that's
so.
what I was remembering, that I had seen stuff, and I'm like, wait, is that what that was? Like, am I making the right synapse connections right now? And it's like, oh, that wasn't it at all. Never mind.
No, not at all.
So 6.
What did you like about
Yeah.
Fast 6? Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
And why is it Godzilla?
I love the action in this movie, and like the action's certainly a highlight of all the Fast movies, but like there is something about this one that I do think like it really seems to know what it wanted to do as far as being a summer action movie. Like it only came out like in May. It came out like late May that year, like because we had like the April releases. And we, some of the early ones were June. Like this one felt like a proper like summer movie around Memorial Day weekend.
Blockbuster.
Like cool. All right, let's.
Did you
do
see this in theaters?
Everything but Too Fast. I believe I've said before.
Okay, cool.
The only one I didn't see in theaters. No, like I like this iteration of the cast quite a bit. I think they're all just having a lot of fun together. I like that despite the fact that the stakes are Owen Shaw threatening Vin Diesel, and Vin Diesel being once again in his own kind of movie where it's like I take this all seriously. My family means everything to me. The rest of the cast, like Tyrese and Paul Walker, are having a fucking ball in this film. They're like smiling it up every step of the way, and it really highlights just how much of I would never necessarily say that Brian is my favorite Fast and Furious character, but seeing him in these films versus not seeing him in these films, you can tell there's a certain kind of energy when he's
Oh, for
around
sure.
because of how he
Yes.
gets to play off Tyrese and Tej and the rest of the like and Vin obviously. Like there's something there that just like it allows you to remember that these are all supposed to be fun, where the subsequent movies feel like they have to add the fun to like in like broader and broader ways to remind you that yeah, these are supposed to be action. This one feels like yeah, things are there's things happening, but like it's still fun. Like Tyrese can still make jokes about chips and whatnot. Like it's not it doesn't have to be super serious all the time. And yeah, like there's just some key stunts that I really love. I love the cars, the cars that Shaw drives, that like the flipper cars that he
Yeah,
has.
those are cool.
One of my it has a couple of my favorite Dwayne Johnson moments where he just like decides, you know what, the best move for me to do is right now jump from one thing to another thing while they're both moving at very high speeds. He does that twice in this movie, and it's hilarious both times. It's like that's the only move.
I don't think he'd be very good at jumping between things. He's so big. His
It's the only
mass.
move I have. Jump to this other thing. That's his special power. I love the opening. I love the like never for a second I thought this is a serious race or like or they're racing against something. I just like that it's like this very high intense speed race and they have the opening credits and it's all flashing back to the other movies and the Wiz Khalifa songs playing, which is my favorite singles of this franchise. And then it's just like, oh yeah, she's giving birth. Like yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That tank chase on the freeway, I think, is an action highlight of this series. Like if I had to make a top five of action scenes in this series, I do think that tank chase on the freeway is great. Brian popping over the other side of the bridge, Tyrese jumping from the tank onto Brian's car.
I
Uh,
think this one speaks even like beyond Fast and Furious though. Like the tank bridge jump.
I'm saying
That
of
whole
of the
sequence
series. I'm
is
saying
like.
of the series. Like,
But I'm saying like I would even put that up there. Like this is like a good action set piece compared to a lot of
oh
good
sure,
action set
yeah,
pieces
no, it's
for me.
yeah.
That's what I mean. Like even like we talk about it like we're like, oh yeah, in the series like this is a really great one. But I'm like that one like kind of extends like going to space and stuff like that. Like you're like whatever, that's fun for us. But like this one, I'm like, wow, that is a really really cool scene just in general for any movie,
I
right?
agree. I think five, six, and seven all have like centerpiece sequences that represent like the best action of the 2000s, the 2010s. Like Fast
Yes,
Five
yeah.
has the whole train thing. Furious Seven has the twisty highway parachuting cars whole sequence. Like they certainly up it as they go along in these, but in terms of like scenes that feel like they exist in a world that's plausible to some degree, yeah, that tank chase is pretty rocking. Like it's pretty solid. A lot of cool stunts, a variety of stunts too, because it's like cars, jumps, tanks.
Now we say this almost every time that we talk about six, but did you know that that tank scene was supposed to be like the end of one movie? They like jammed two movies together.
Yeah,
So like if that was the only like if the airplane the runway scene was not in this movie at all, would you still feel satisfied if the tank was the big finale? Because like it's a great scene and I agree with everything you just said, but like if that's the ending to the movie, like the final big action scene, are you satisfied?
I would say yes, and here's why. Obviously, it restructured the movie so it would make sense to be the ending of that film. But the
Yeah.
main reason why is because I forgot this, and I got way more emotional than I expected. The move where Vin Diesel's hanging out the car and he drives and jumps and he saves Letty and lands. It's the most romantic thing you've seen in a Fast and Furious movie, bar none.
Yes, it
It's
is.
so fucking
Yes, it is.
cool. It's so like heartfelt as far as what he's doing there. He's like, I don't know even though if this is gonna work, even though the best thing we do is improvise. But I'm going to jump off my car over a bridge where there's nothing underneath me, assume that I'll catch her because I've timed this right because I'm just that good because he is, and then presumably land somewhere that's at least safe enough to protect her, not caring about my own life. That's a fucking man for life for you right there. That is so it's such a like I was caught up in it and I knew it was gonna happen. Like I've seen this movie 7 times or whatever. Like I know what's exactly what's going on, but watching it this time, and I might be watching it like I'm watching it while doing work because I've seen this movie plenty. I wasn't like watching it in my like other room with my giant TV.
Yes.
I'm just like casually watching it, and I'm still like, oh my god, this is so nice. It's such a good feeling. So if the movie was structured around like, Shaw's like a means to an ends, but the real plot is Dom needs to get Letty back, to like, get her back on, the good side of things or whatever. And that's like the emotional climax of the film. They've succeeded. So you could end the movie there because that's the goal of the movie. And it's like, yeah, and then we locked away Shaw in the same cell next to Braga and Carter Verone for their own movie, which I still want to happen badly. You can tell because I keep mentioning them because they're alive. They're alive in the Fast and Furious universe. I want to even assume Rick Yoon's somehow alive somewhere, stuffed in like cryo storage or somewhere, so we can just have all of them.
Love
back.
to see it.
Love to see exactly.
Is there something about this movie, Aaron, that you don't like? I mean, you have it fourth, so I don't know if the other three are just movies that you love more than this one, that you love this one too, or like other than what we talked about earlier, like things what about this movie keeps it from being number one for you?
I mean, it's like I mentioned that one scene, the auction scene, where it's just like
Yeah.
it just feels badly inserted into this thing. But honestly, not. But like that's what I was wondering as I was watching this movie. I was like, why don't I watch this more? Like this one's great. Like there's nothing. I have no like bad thoughts about this one, and it has another great mid credit. I mean, talk about the fucking Statham of it all. Like that's another amazing thing which I had no idea about going into the movie because I try to stay as much as I write about this stuff and do all this stuff in the film world, I stay very free of anything going into a movie. Like I don't know plots because I choose not to learn them or hear about specific cameos or whatnot, which is why like Spider-Man No Way Home frustrated me because nobody could fucking stop talking about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire before
Yes,
having seen the movie,
yes.
and they're just like couldn't stop talking.
Before you had
But
seen
before
the
anybody, like
movie.
I saw it first essentially because I had a press screening.
I know that's
But,
what I
like-
was saying. Yeah, you saw it like
But
immediately.
like
That's
months before, everyone just couldn't stop talking. It's like these are the most obvious cameos. I'm like, shut up! Like I don't. Who cares? Like if they're in it, let's wait to see it. Like that'd be great. Not
Yeah.
like make it less surprising by the time it happens. Anyway, so like yeah, the Statham factor is great too. But like, why do I have it fourth? It's probably just because I just love 7, 5, and 3 that much more. I guess it's less about what this one doesn't do right, and more about just how much more I like those films. That's what I think it comes down to.
That sucks that like people are just out here to ruin shit. Like you just want to be the first person to say that you
It sucks that
knew
it's
it or
it
saw
sucks
it.
that it's like press that does it, not critics, but press that does it. Like that's like gets clicks, right? Is this person
I don't
going to
know if
be
you've
in
ever
this?
played video games, but like when Joe and I met playing Halo, the fun thing to do was on the day that Harry Potter 6 came out, jumping
You
into
remember
random
this.
lobbies and saying Snape kills Dumbledore, and then like jumping out of the game and then going to a different one and just spoiling, because like the Halo Harry Potter cross section is like a Venn diagram. It's basically like a circle, like you're all like 14-year-old boys in 2002.
Yeah.
And so to be able to spoil whatever.
I'm not a Harry Potter guy. Like I saw the movies, but I didn't read the books, so like it didn't like quote unquote mean something to me. That said, that summer when 6 was coming out, my friend told me that like way before, and I'm like, why would you say that to me? It's like Snape. No, first he said Dumbledore dies. I'm like, don't tell me that. It's like, yeah, Snape kills him. Like, why would you? Why should I learn this?
Yeah, why are you
This
continuing
is
doing
not,
this,
this is
ruining
not
it more?
helpful at all. I will say the movie doesn't hide that that's the thing that's going to happen. Like it feels very obvious watching the movie. It's like it's all leading to this. So it's like, all right. I could have sussed this out myself if I was watching the movie. Though I don't tend to do that kind of thing. I tend to like be in the moment, so I don't like try to guess where things are going or who the killer is.
I do too. I was just talking to my buddy about this. He's like, oh, we were like watching Severance, and he's like, I think all these things are gonna happen. I was like, bro, I don't even think about that shit. Like, I just go along for the ride.
That's
Like,
why
just give me what you're gonna give me. It's so much more enjoyable.
That's
this
why I
way.
have nothing against Lost. I'm like, yeah, I watched it. It was good. I didn't sit there hypothesize about everything every week. Or even like that's why I like trailers because I can my mind doesn't like think to what did I see in this trailer and how does it match into this movie.
That I do, and it's
I
bad, so
can
you don't
if
watch
I.
trailers.
It usually happens if I'm bored in a movie. Like if I'm bored, that means the movie's bad. Therefore, my mind's wandering. So I'm like, well,
Yes.
this can't happen until this guy does this thing that I saw in the trailer. So whatever.
The worst example of that was, I think it was Terminator Genesis. Is that the one that came out like 2015? That trailer was before every single movie I saw that summer, and so I knew the trailer inside and out, even when I wasn't paying attention to trailers. And I'm like, oh, they haven't had the bus scene yet. Like, that's still coming. Okay, cool. Oh, here's the school bus driving. Oh, the fall of the... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a terrible movie. So you got that going.
Well, yeah, but,
I know what you're saying.
this isn't 2 Terminator 2 Genesis. 2 Terminator 2 Forever, I guess, is more accurate. I don't know.
Do you think they time travel at some point? You think like Tej
Yes.
is like I've been messing around with
Yes.
the particle accelerator I have
Yes.
in my backyard, and I figured if we go
I think that's the only logical jump.
if we go
dude.
fat,
they've done
if we
everything
go
else.
fast enough, which is
Well,
which is
oh,
one
oh,
that
wait,
one
miles
of
an
us do
hour.
best.
hold on. How have we never pitched this? We keep asking, do people on the plane die? Do you think Jacob's dead? What if they're all dead? Vin also dies. Vin and Baby B die, and someone...
Oh, and we combo my thing, and we just boop, reverse.
Somebody who is living has to, maybe it's Cypher or Letty, maybe we get the all-female Fast and Furious where Cypher, Letty, and Giselle, with the help of Mr. Nobody, have to run it back and save everyone.
That is a genius plan, dude. I like that. That's our happy ending time. That's like, oh, what a crazy coincidence. We just are all here, and they also rewind, and we also get time travel.
Although the funny thing is that, like, that means that the final film will not have really Vin Diesel in it. That Ludacris will not be in it. That Roman Tyrese will not be in it. That Natalie Emmanuel will not be in it.
I would assume that Dom lives through all of this, regardless. You can kill all the others off, and they'll still get revived. And somehow, I think Dom was he's the central figure to like survive through all the chaos. That said, here's what I'm thinking, which goes in line with all of this. Yes, well, the reason they come back is because they've been time traveled back to life or whatever. It's all because of Mr. Nobody's actually little Brian all grown up, and he's the older version of him to begin with, so he's seen all this in the past. That'd be what I go with if there's a time travel aspect in there. That Mr. Nobody's actually the son of Brian.
Like,
he's seen all of it. He's seen this feature many, many times over.
Like, it would be such a cop out, but also like it pulls together all of our insane theories in a way that like makes sense. Like, they're all about to die. What if they all died and then the time travel brings them back?
Just like boop, and they just I just want to see like Letty be like, I don't know if we should push this button, and then it's like
rewind. It would help me take X's finale more serious when Jack Reacher kills Tej and everybody in a plane off screen, and we're supposed to buy the idea that, oh yeah, they're probably dead. I guess they're gone. We'll never see those characters again. If they actually did do that, but like they were revived through time travel, I'm like, okay. Yeah. You said it and it happened. That's good to know.
I'm back. We're back.
You were serious. He did kill them. Good job.
Aaron, other notes, other thoughts about Fast and Furious 6?
My big takeaway was how romantic that one gesture was. That was the main thing I wanted to bring to this episode. But anything else? I'm sure you guys have talked about the runway plenty of times, so there's not really much reason to dig into it too far.
But you haven't.
I just assume it's a loop. It's one of those runway loops that they have in the world.
It's a Pleasantville loop. Main Street goes here.
Yeah, Main Street gets Elm Street goes across.
Or they're in a weird like makeup world where when you reach the end, it just goes to the back of the other screen again. You just keep going.
I think that the real thing, that the Fast and the Furious thing, and we've said this before, is that like everything's happened concurrently. You're just seeing it in normal speed at different times.
It's definitely concurrent as far as seeing outside the plane action versus inside the plane action. But that, when you do the math on that, and there people have done, that still doesn't amount for all the time they spent on that runway.
Yes.
It's not like because they happen at the same time, suddenly it doesn't take half an hour for them to lift off. It's still a long sequence on one long runway. So like I said, it's either a Pac-Man world where you reach the end and you go back the other side again, or it's just one of those really long circles in Europe that we've all heard about in the past.
And Joe, get ready for a goof about that, because boy, are people angry about that runway.
Okay. The last thing that I saw, just because Aaron's here and we had talked about Gran Turismo, I had talked about Gran Turismo with Aaron, and we had just recently covered Gran Turismo. It's not out yet, but podcast. Yes. Mm-hmm. I caught this time that Brian says, "Oh, these are custom turbo diesel engines. Sounds like something you'd hear at Le Mans." And I was like, "Oh."
The Buster became a gearhead.
We just all merged right in that moment, and I felt really glad about it.
Another favorite moment I have, which I always like, is the big fight, the big like chase fight happens between both Letty and Riley, and then but also Roman, Han, and Joe Talzin from the Raid, the big like chase subway fight that they have. I love when Letty is like, she's like, okay, I can't just beat this girl using my fist because she's an MMA fighter. Time to get scrappy. She bites her, then she fucking charges her down the stairs. That's the best. That was another moment where I'm like, oh man, like I'm getting choked up while watching this. And then just the whole Roman and Han of it all, where they're like severely outmatched. And like I'm sitting there like, I've seen the Raid many times at this point. It's like, you guys don't even know what you're getting into. Like, stop trying. He's just taking him to task, not even breaking a sweat. When he holds Han and he like gets in and makes Roman punch Han, that's the best. That's it's so funny. And then there's just little conclusion where it's like, we don't say this to anybody. It's a good Roman line.
Well, there's something really cool about the way that the movie uses that Letty Riley fight to be like, who am I rooting for here? Because like you want to root for Letty because you've rooted for Letty for so many movies, but she's the bad guy here, and so you're kind of rooting for Riley, but also like knowing if you've seen this movie before, you're really rooting for Letty because you know Riley's bad. Like it's just like a weird that like the other fight is kind of cooler just because like they don't have a chance against him, but there's something like narratively interesting about the Riley Letty fight where it's just like, who am I rooting for here?
Yeah, there's a good like thematic work going on within that fight. That's the other fight. That's why it's good to have them together because there's one that's like you can balance. It's a lot of tonal shit. That's why this movie's good, guys. Like it's got a lot of like things it's balancing at the same time. It's doing it like with ease. It feels like this feels like I cannot speculate what the attitude was like on set, but it feels like the one that just came together with the least amount of controversy.
They're in a nice stride.
Yeah.
I can feel it
like
too.
I'm sure 5 was probably pretty easygoing as well. In the scheme of things, but like this one just feels like we're all like riding on the high of how great 5 was, and we can just keep this kind of thing.
And they
going.
must like seen the script of 6 and been like, oh, this is gonna be a fucking like crusher. Like this is gonna do so well. We all know it is. We're back together. We're gonna having fun. Yeah, it just feels it down the
and
line.
like while all that's happening, Vin and Dwayne are just like hating each other more and more. So by the time they film their final scene at the barbecue, Justin Lin has to stage that ridiculous blocking of the two of them standing where they're just opposites to each other, not at all in front of each other, but instead standing to the side and facing different directions, which is always amusing. And I think kind of
same height.
They're the same height. Well, they're on that famous hill at the Toretto house, so it makes it seem like you saw her.
I have 2 more little notes so we can play the game. Number 1, the line we talked about a lot, those words went out the day we were born, is like a really hard, tough line, which is very cool, but it's also like really sad where Vin's like, we were born like never expecting to get anything from anybody. Like we've been fighting since. It's just like, man, like you're really like, it's like he's saying this to be like tough. It's also like, man, you've like had a life. Like, damn, okay.
Trauma. What?
And then the other thing was, and I felt very validated here, Joe, but right in the scene where Roman is playing with the harpoon, he like shoots that harpoon between Dom and Han.
Yes.
They're talking about the car, and Han just says, nice color. And then I'm just like, look, Han cares about colors of cars.
Yeah, it's the ease. I'm telling you, it's the ease of these guys in this one. These are like they're so laid back. Like this is just like I'm a Roman guy. That's my guy in this franchise. He's so much fun here because he gets to like he's not complete clown, but he's like having a good time.
He's getting there,
and he's also in the stunts still too. Like he does the fucking jump off the car. It's great. Like Roman's just so perfectly utilized in this movie.
All right, cool. Let us now play this ain't no 10-second race, aka boy do we have a podcast for you.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Come and check out our show. Yeah.
So just go on x.com and find any post by anybody and respond to them as us, encouraging them to listen to the show. I found one earlier. I'm going to Zach_Parks. Zach Parks. You might know why I found this tweet, but it just says, from Fast and Furious, quote, Mia Toretto, how do you say goodbye to your only brother? Oops. And then there's a picture of Dom looking at Jacob. Okay. And it's from 5 years ago. And I just searched Fast and Furious Oops on Twitter because it's the Fast and Furious Oops lap. And I'm going to say the same thing happened with the Shaws. Like this franchise is not good with family, but boy, do we have a podcast for you.
I like these.
I got one.
These are fun.
Oh, this is fun.
All right, Joe, what is your tweet, please?
It's from the girl with the Garfield tattoo at Shelby Boring. Stole Aaron's thought here.
Oh, we both have tweets from 2020, so we are both like going real good.
Yeah, we're
here.
doing great. We're crushing. Yeah, I was going to say this is an old one. The most romantic moment in all of cinema is when Dom challenges Letty to a street race to help her remember who he is in Fast and Furious 6. That is a very good one, but we think diving across the bridge to save her might be the most romantic moment in all of cinema. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Yeah, accurate.
Yeah, it was just dead on. From 2020, but Shelby knows what she's talking about. She's a freelance poster designer.
It's great flirting in the franchise.
Mm-hmm. All right, Aaron, do you have a tweet, and where are you sending it to me so I can grab it?
So at Virility Clips has a video of looks like a self-driving car, but it looks like there's a dog in the front seat driving the car. There's another dog in the passenger seat next to him, just like sprawled out, like passed out, and then the man of the owner of said dogs, presumably, is sitting in the back seat just chilling like it's no business. The tweet says he's even checking the mirrors, like the dog is like really intense on driving. And then at Gio14 writes, Dogs thinks he's in the Fast and Furious franchise, skull car emoji. To which I say, boy, do we have a podcast for you.
just in general, yeah. Yeah. You're our target audience, most likely. And that's from today, too. Damn. Okay, yeah. G, you probably are our target audience.
Well, Aaron, thank you for joining us. Thank you for talking about Fast and Furious 6 and also the future
and giving us your
franchise.
brain for the other stuff. That was important to me, so thank you for letting us do that.
What would you like to plug? Of course, there is the new Two Black Guys Talking About Godzilla podcast. You've got other things going on, so what do you want to plug? Where can people find you online?
Just to be clear, because it has to be very accurate. Two Black Guys Talk Godzilla coming this March.
So not talking about Godzilla. Oh, you dropped the. Okay, good. You Facebooked it. Okay.
Two Black Guys Talk Godzilla. That's the podcast.
Talk Godzilla, not about and
yes, it's cleaner. That's arriving everywhere you can find podcasts this coming mid-March. March, because we have a brief introduction episode to get people acquainted with us. But that's coming soon. I also host Out Now with Aaron and Abe. That is the podcast my friend Abe and I have been hosting for a good 14 years almost, coming this March, which is ridiculous.
Holy shit, congratulations, brother. That's a long run.
Thank you. We've been we talk about the weekly movie releases, and we do a lot of bonus content as well. We just did a commentary for the 2003 film SWAT. You're either SWAT or not, by the way.
With friend of the show Mark Hoffmeyer on that episode.
With friend of the show Mark Hoffmeyer, indeed. I am a writer. I'm the editor-in-chief at We Live Entertainment, so you can find all my movie reviews over there. I also cover Blu-ray and Criterion reviews over at Aaron's at Why So Blue.
Yeah, Aaron, why are you so blue?
Too many blue raspberry ices, and I'm on all the socials at Aaron's PS4. And one more thing, I just want to say, I never fear death or dying. I only fear never trying. I am whatever I am.
Yeah.
Only God can judge me now.
Can you imagine, we had a guest on for an entire lap who did not like that opening. We're like, what's wrong with you? Heather Antos, I'm calling you out right now. What is wrong with you for not liking that intro? That is one of the coolest things.
Yeah, she was like, you know what I didn't like in this movie? The intro. And we were like, what?
Like, she started off the lap as not a fan of these movies. And then by this point, she was like on board. And she's like, I just didn't like the opening. We're like, it's the best part. What are you talking about? Joe, our next episode is another Life in the Fast Lane. We will talk about the goofs. We will talk about the BD Wappy results. And we'll talk about more next
Run the
week.
VIN. We'll run the VIN again.
D&D, baby. D&D. Roll those die. Don't even ask. Ha ha. I also want to give a very special shout out to our patrons, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleinman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party.
Ooh.
You're a father now, Brian. Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden. Should I just say Brian Rodriguez of Fatherhood instead? Just
Yes,
okay.
I think so. Because the podcast isn't operating. We know that.
I'm going to change it right now. Of Fatherhood. Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleinman, and Brian Rodriguez of Fatherhood. Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan. I think you need like a sound there too, like a wah wah something.
Wah. Okay.
Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden Renato, DiDonato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Chase Rain, Tom Price, Mike Gallagher, Josh Buckley of Whole Lot of Wolves,
Yep.
Michael Moser, Christian Larson, Taryn Newman, Aaron Willows, Natalie Absolute, Randy Carter, Josh Goularm, Alex Walsh, Josh Luther, Jack Haley, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. We just had a bonus episode of Star Trek 4 come out for all of those people. We also have 200 miles per hour coming out very soon for them, so go to toofast2forever.com for all that. And everybody, main feed, Patreon feed, will get next episode, Life of the Fast Lane number 43, as maybe we'll get a car flip in Shangri-La. Who knows?
Okay.
I was also realizing, Joe, the first, the equivalent of this movie to that, when they're jumping around different things, there's so much more happening in this movie than Tokyo Drift. We thought Tokyo Drift was going to be crazy. Early 6 is going to be crazy. Just letting you know when we get there in 30 years.
Fair enough. Yeah, true.
For all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFastTooForever, or at TooFastTooForever on most of the socials. Email us, family@cageclub.me. We'll read it next episode on Life in the Fast Lane. Patreon page, TooFastTooForever.com, and our store, cageclub.me/shop. Come back next week for Life in the Fast Lane. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was Aaron Neuwirth, and we will tell you all about it
when we see you again.